On this week's show, we meet Brett, who attended the crash course and 1 year later has 9 properties making £3,000 a month.
We're going to be discussing the difference between single lets and HMOs.
And in the news, we look at the UK commercial property market. Welcome to the Property Investors Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're here every single Friday at 4 p.m. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an upload. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. Enjoy this week's show and don't forget to share it with all your friends. I'm Russell Leeds, CEO of Property Investors with Samuel Leeds, and I also run a letting agency. I've been investing in property for about 10 years now.
My name's Alistair Cunningham. I'm a property investor, I'm a landlord, and I'm the director of Better Source Limited.
Fantastic. So, before we get cracking into the content, how are you, my friend? How are you doing?
I'm very good. What about yourself?
Yeah, really well, thanks. You having a good week?
I've had a really good week. What about yourself?
That sounded so fake. I've had a really good...
No.
Are you able to see yet?
So I can see now, but I've still had a bit of a quiet week because I'm still recovering from my eye surgery.
So you're just dossing around, basically?
Not so much dossing around, but I'm just not as busy.
So what have you been doing?
So we've been doing a lot of viewings, not as many as I normally do, doing a few viewings, speaking with lots of sort of investors, overseas investors and things like that. So I've been doing a lot of Skype calls this week.
Nice.
What about yourself?
I viewed another castle yesterday.
I knew you had a big viewing, you told me. But you didn't tell me what it was for, but you told me you had a big viewing.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to go for it, though. But
okay, are you allowed to discuss where it is?
Well, it's not a million miles away from where we live. It was one, we were thinking of buying it, but Samuel would probably live in it.
Okay.
But Amanda didn't like it.
What's wrong with it?
Too castle-y.
Right, has it got a moat?
No, but she likes more modern. Had like big red stripy carpets and...
Yeah, but you can change your carpet, surely.
I said that. Yeah, obviously. I don't know. She just thought it was a bit too...
Castle-y.
Castle-y, I think was the word. So, right, so starting off, we're going to talk about Brett. Mm-hmm. Now, Brett is a guy who came along to the crash course. A year later, he had 9 properties, making £3,000 a month. So he's doing pretty well. He's interviewed by Samuel Leeds, and we're going to play a little clip from that now.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. So my name's Brett Jackson, as Samuel said. Been in business for about 8 years now. From Barnsley, I'm part of an award-winning wedding duo. Run a TP business, run a business that works in primary schools, and then after following yourself, etc., invested in property, and I've just become financially free.
Oh mate, high five, bro. That's awesome. And you messaged me on Facebook.
Yes.
Literally, was it like 3 days ago?
Two days ago.
And you messaged me and said, I'm financially free. You can add me to your list.
Yeah, add me to your list.
And I was just like, man, I've got to interview someone now every single week on the Winners on a Wednesday. And not only have they got to be financially free, or at least successful in some way, but they've also got to be willing to be on camera.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming down. What has been your strategy then to hit financial freedom?
So far, what I've done with all my businesses, with my profits, I've just invested them in just nice and simple resi buy-to-lets.
Yeah.
I've not done anything crazy yet. I've just today.
And by crazy you mean flips and HMOs?
Well, that sort of thing. I mean, a few people a few of my estate agent friends, they're trying to get me to develop something into a 10 flat apartment, that sort of thing. So, which, don't get me wrong, down the line I'm sure I could do. But at the minute I've just been doing normal residential buy-to-lets.
So you've been doing that just basic single lets, not crazy stuff like HMOs or flips?
Just run-of-the-mill, single, buy-to-let, 25% down, some 20% down. I have just refinanced as well, so my property's gone up in value, refinanced.
That's brilliant. So you're getting paid. I remember we talked about that. You came to the crash course the back end of last year?
Yes.
So it's been
December,
I think it was December 2017, so it's almost been a year now.
Yeah, just shy of a year.
So you took a lot of time reading the book and stuff like that. But I haven't received any money from you. And yet you've used and applied what you've learned on the free crash course and the free books and stuff, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely fantastic, and I'm so pleased for you. So tell me about the kind of properties that you're buying and what kind of return on investment you're getting.
So, like I say, I've got a range from 50 to 85,000 properties. Not that many properties.
How many, sorry? How many?
I've got, the range is from 50,000 to 85,000.
Okay.
I've got 9 properties.
Yeah.
Which makes about just shy of £3,000 a month.
Which is the average salary, right?
Which is average salary.
Exactly the average. I think the average salary is about 2,500 a month.
Well, yeah.
So you're just shy of 3. So you're just probably just over the average salary.
Exactly, just over the average.
And that's passive income.
Passive income. For an example, my 50,000 house costs just over 10.
Yeah.
Deposit fees just over. I make $450 a month. I think my mortgage is just over 100.
That's crazy that your mortgage payments are just over 100 quid.
116 or something.
Yeah.
My biggest one, which is 83,000, it is a 4-bed, really nice townhouse. And I get $595 a month for that.
So what you're doing then is you're buying properties that are near where you actually live.
Yep.
Which is where, Barnsley?
Barnsley. Barnsley.
Near Barnsley. And you're buying them for around about 50, 60, 70, 80 grand.
Yep.
You're renting them out for like 450, 550, that
Yep.
kind of price. You're making a 25% return.
Yep,
and
minimum.
And then you're getting paid once in return on investment, which is cash flow.
Yep.
Which is not mega. But with 8, 9 properties, you've got 9 properties?
9 now,
It's,
yeah.
it's enough for an average income, so technically you're financially free.
Oh, yeah,
but you're
of course.
also getting paid in capital appreciation, which doesn't pay the bills, but you've said that they've gone up a bit and you've
Yep.
just refinanced.
Gone up, refinance, getting about 15 grand out of one of them, so
Brill.
something on another house.
Brilliant.
Okay, so interesting how he's opted to go just the single let route.
Yeah. It's quite interesting, really. So I'm assuming that he came to Crash Course, a year ago? I'll assume that he one or two of the properties that he bought were ones he found on the Crash Course.
Yeah.
And they're all, as he said in his video, they're all 50 to 80,000 pound properties. So they're not even mega money.
Yeah.
They're quite low barrier to entry.
Yeah.
And he's making 3k a month. So it's good. He's probably making what, £300 a month, £300, maybe £400 a month per property.
Yeah.
Profit. He is self-managing, obviously, so he's going to be saving a bit of money on management costs.
Yeah.
But I think like 9 or 10 properties. I don't know when's the number of properties. When do you have to start sort of looking at management? Otherwise, you're going to have a bit of a job in your hands.
I think you have to start looking at management at property number 1.
1, yeah, same as. I knew you were going to say that. I must admit, I can't think of anything worse than managing properties. I really can't, because I couldn't think of anything worse than managing tenants.
No. Well, I mean, the good thing about a single let is that the tenants are a lot easier.
Yeah.
I actually do self-manage one of my properties.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that single let or HMO?
Single let.
Right.
I would never self-manage a HMO.
No, I must admit, after speaking to like the girls at Quick Move and that, the sort of the efforts they go to,
it's a nightmare.
It's not something that I would be looking to do myself.
No.
I don't think so.
I self-manage one. The reason I self-manage it is because I bought it with a tenant already in.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll wait for her to move out.
Yeah.
And then when she does, I'll get a new letting agent.
But let me guess. You've been such a good landlord. She's never moved out.
Correct.
I would never have thought that.
Correct.
I can see that. That's good.
Yeah. I even bought her a Christmas present.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did she buy you one?
No.
It's a bit selfish, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's good, man.
Dropped her off but I've had her now. To be fair, I've stopped doing that. For the first few years, I took her around at Christmas because I wanted to keep her sweet.
Okay.
I don't bother anymore.
Is that because she wasn't buying you a present?
I think so. I felt a bit hurt.
You felt
a bit hurt inside.
That's good, man. So she's been there for how long?
Since 2010.
So that's 8 years.
8 years.
That's actually really good. Is she paying good money? Is she paying like going rate, or have you given her a bit of a discount?
I've left it as it is.
So you've never increased the rent?
Never increased the rent.
Wow, not even with inflation. Good on you, man. No way. I'd like to.
Do you know why?
I think you're a good landlord, man.
Oh, thank you. Because I'm sort of thinking, if I increase the rent, have you ever been a tenant, or are you just one of those rich snobs that just went straight into?
No, I've
Your
never...
name's Alistair, so you must be.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. Russell sent me a video the other day of Billy Connolly, and he does a sketch where he talks about Alistair with a D.
Alistair would do.
With a D. You know I'm posh, you know.
All the posh people are called Alistair with a D.
That was actually quite funny. I started playing it and I thought, what's Russell doing? What's he sending me this video for? And then I saw the Alistair bit and I thought that was quite funny.
It's quite funny.
But,
yeah, so look it up. Just search Billy Connolly, Alistair. It's quite funny.
It's quite funny. But no, it's good.
Have you ever been a tenant?
No, I've never been a tenant, no.
All right. Well, let me tell you what goes through a tenant's head, because I've been a tenant. I still am a tenant.
Okay.
As you know. So anyone that's a tenant, what happens is when they tell you the rent is increasing,
Yeah.
you think to yourself, I wonder what else is going for. Let's say they say to you, the rent's going up because she pays $450, which is
Right.
what she's paid the whole time. What she was paying with her old landlord, where I just kept it as it was. If I upped it to $550,
Yeah.
she'd go, I wonder what else is going for $550, and then
$550.
I might have 1-2 months of voids.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's worth it. I'd rather her think to herself, I don't want to moan to the landlord because he hasn't put the rent up in 9 years.
Yeah.
And just keep paying it every month. As
Yeah.
long as I'm making money out of it. I mean, the mortgage is 199 quid. So
It's not massive cash flow, but it's still
No.
better than nothing. But the good thing being, right, why upset the apple cart? I know you're a businessman and you're here to make lots of money and run businesses, be successfully, but also you've got to have happy tenants.
you do.
You've obviously got a happy tenant. They've been
Yeah.
there 8-9 years. So why would you put the rent up
If she moved
for the
out,
sake of another
I'd put the
30
rent up.
quid
Yeah.
or whatever? It's not worth it.
No.
It's not worth losing a good paying tenant. I'm assuming she's always paid her
She's a
rent.
good paying tenant. She decorates it.
Exactly.
She keeps the house.
It's a no-brainer.
It is.
Obviously, what is the going rate though in that area?
Probably 500.
Okay. But see,
Hasn't
it's
gone up much.
interesting. Brett, he's obviously, he did mention in his video that he's had one property's been trashed. He said out of the 9 tenants, one property's been trashed, but he did, in the video, sort of take a partial blame for that because he didn't do his due diligence. So I think when you do your due diligence properly,
Yeah.
it's good. But
Yeah.
Brett's doing really well,
He
3K
is
a
doing
month.
So, I mean, on the crash course, they spend the first part of the day talking about single lets, and then we talk about being creative with
Yeah.
HMOs, service accommodations. So he'll have known all that, but he chose to go the single let route. Do you remember the other week we talked about being committed, and he's committed to that, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
great because he's stuck with the strategy. That's fine. But if you were starting, what would you go HMO? Would you go single let? Which way would you go with it? The reason I ask is because I just thought it was weird after finding this interview. Our next piece is that we're going to be interviewing Samuel, and he's talking about what would he prefer, single let
Yeah.
or HMO. I tell you what, before I get your thoughts, let's see what Samuel thinks.
So I'm just gonna get it out there right up for the record. I think that HMOs are better than single lets, usually. Now, that's not to say that every HMO is better than every single let. It's not to say that just because it's a HMO means it's a good deal, and just because it's a single let means it's a bad deal. I'm gonna give you a balanced view of the pros and cons though. Firstly, let me give you the negatives of HMOs. So the negatives of HMOs, number one is they're usually more expensive to buy and get into, because not only are the properties more expensive usually, but also, you have got setup costs such as furniture, fire doors, smoke alarms. You might have to get a license to the property. So there are setup costs. Now, the way that I buy HMOs is probably very different to most people. My setup costs are extremely low. There are going to be some substantial setup costs. So typically speaking, to buy a HMO, you're going to need a minimum in your bank of £35,000. That's like a minimum just to get into the HMO market. HMO, multi-let, whatever. We're talking about when you rent a property out on a room by room basis here. So that's the negative to HMOs. Another negative about HMOs is the management of it. So I would recommend don't manage it yourself, get someone to do it, but you're gonna need to find someone to do it. So you're gonna need a particular person in your power team who's going to be good at managing HMOs. Anyone could manage a single let. You could just have any high street letting agent. Sometimes a lot of my students have properties, no one manages it. They do it themselves just from a distance, and the phone might ring every 3 or 4 months. So the management of HMOs is a lot more, which of course can be overcome by a good property manager, but that's all the cons. In regards to legislation changes, I can't imagine them bringing in any more legislation for HMOs. They already have brought in all the legislation I think they're gonna bring in. So this is I guess a good thing about buying HMOs. I think it's quite safe. All the legislation's been brought in. It's not like serviced accommodation whereby it's unregulated and it could suddenly change. HMO is already regulated. So if you do it properly, there's not a risk of that, but it is gonna cost you 35 grand as a minimum, and you're gonna need to find out a good HMO manager manager in the area to let it. So that's the cons. The pros of buying a HMO over a single let are just obvious. When you buy a normal house, a normal single let, you get paid once by that person or that family that's living there. Whereas when you buy a HMO property, you're getting paid 4, 5, 6 times because you've got multiple people living in the property, which means that you've got a substantial more amount of rent. If you look at my portfolio, I mean, the bulk of my income, certainly for my residential portfolio, comes from HMOs, even though I've got just as many single lets as HMOs. If you wiped out my single lets of my portfolio, it wouldn't affect me anywhere near as much as it would if you knocked out the HMOs. So they're a brilliant cash cow. Typically a HMO is going to earn you a profit in your back pocket of anywhere from £700 right up to £2,000 a month, depending on where and what it is. So brilliant cash cow. You can't retire off 3 single let properties. It just doesn't happen. But I know loads and loads of people who have retired or become completely financially free off the back of just buying 3 HMOs. Now let me talk a little bit about single lets, advantage and disadvantage. Well, obviously, as we've said, the disadvantage to single lets is the income's usually pretty poor. I'm not talking about the return, I'm talking about the income. So an average single let might make you £200 or £300 a month, and you're gonna need what, 10 of those just to earn an average salary? 10? That's a lot of properties. I know people that own 50 properties and their income is not that great because the single let houses that they've got just aren't generating them much income. That's a big con. A big pro to single lets is the mortgageability on them. It's so easy to just buy a single let house. Pretty much anybody. You can be just finished university, 21 years old, not got much money. You know, I know a lot of people in that kind of status in life that are just going and buying single let properties. Whereas a HMO, you're gonna need to, you know, a particular type of lender. It's a little bit more complicated. So what I often advise is buy a single let first as your first property, and then once you've got a little bit of landlord experience, you've got a little bit of money coming in, then move on to HMOs for your second, third and fourth properties. That's probably generally a good idea. But what I would say, if you're buying a single let property, don't buy a house for like 150, 200 grand and rent it out for £600 a month. You just should not do that. If you're gonna buy a single let, get a single let that's giving you a really high return on investment, because there's no direct correlation between the house price and the rent. A single let property that's 200 grand might give you a rent of 700, but then if you buy a single let for 100 grand, the rent's only is 600. It's just a tiny bit less, which means your return is a lot better. Always make sure, if you're buying single lets, I would rather buy a single let for 60 grand, rent it out for 500 and get a really high return as my first one, and then move on to HMO. So that's a little bit of a pros and cons. If you've got comments, questions, please put them below.
Okay, so that's kind of given a very good overview of the differences between single lets and HMOs. Do you agree with what he said?
Pretty much. Single lets are always going to be easier because you're only dealing with one tenant.
Yeah.
And HMOs are always going to be harder because you're dealing with more people.
Here's a question though.
Go on.
Right, Brett's got 9 properties making 3k a month.
Yeah.
How many HMOs would you need to make 3k a month?
Realistically, probably 3 as long as they're in good area. Because
Should we say 4?
Yeah, more. Well, if you take my HMOs, I make sort of between £700 and £900 per property.
So 4.
So yeah, I would say, but they're only 4 beds. They're not technically HMOs. They're multi-lets. So yeah, I would say 4. Yeah.
Maybe 3 5-beds.
Yeah, a couple. It depends on how many rooms.
So okay,
yeah,
well, here's a
3 or
question.
4.
What would you rather have to manage then? 15 rooms, 16 rooms, or 9 single lets? Because you can't compare 9. You can't compare one single let to one HMO.
No, because it's different.
Because HMO makes more money. So
Yeah.
you've got to really compare having maybe like 3 single lets to one HMO.
I think it all comes back to management, doesn't it? If you're going to manage them yourself, single lets are obviously going to be far easier because you're only dealing with one person or one family. And also the HMOs, like I do hear people saying that there's arguments amongst tenants within properties because who does the washing up, who puts the bins out. I was speaking to Kate Quick Move yesterday, and she was saying one of the biggest complaints they get from tenants is who's going to put the bins out. And I put the bins out last week, so I'm not doing it this week. It's your turn. I mean, that's pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you not think?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Ironically, that's the biggest argument me and my wife have.
Is that because you're not strong enough to lift,
to carry the bin.
to carry that bin out?
Do you know what? It's not really, obviously, really. I put the bins out every week.
Yeah. It's a man job.
It is a man job, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a few walking the dog.
Yeah, no, actually, in my house, walking the dog is Lisa's. She loves walking dogs.
Really?
Yeah, I walk dogs as well. But
All right, my job's are walking the dog, putting the bins out.
that's about it.
I think that
So you don't really do a lot. We've just established.
is that.
Anna,
surely-
sort him out, man.
Hold on, surely I do more than that. I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now.
Do you know what a washing machine is?
Yeah, obviously. It's the thing Anna puts
No,
the
no,
clothes in.
no. A washing machine is not. Do you know when at the end of the day when you take your clothes off and throw them on the floor? That's not a washing machine.
I don't. Tell you something else I do. I iron my own shirts.
Yeah. Looks like you've done a fantastic job of that.
I ironed this morning.
Yeah, not very well.
Well, I do. So I do my own ironing as well.
Okay, yeah, kudos. I will openly admit that I have a very, very loving and supportive wife. So, how did we even get on to talking about what we do at home?
I don't know. It was, yeah,
we're talking about
HMOs.
arguments. Yeah. But I went to one of my HMOs yesterday, and like one of the things that I went to do a minor repair because I happened to be in the area, and one of the things I noticed was freaking rubbish everywhere, like black bags, and it's like, what are you doing? And I'm just getting real frustrated. So I think I'm going to stop going.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's best to not go to your HMO.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
leave it alone. Let the
I
letting
was,
agents sort
you
it.
know what we say about management. I was being a bit of a.
The thing
bit
is,
tight.
though, is that you're not very good at handing over responsibility. I've noticed that about you.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
so,
right.
So you're a bit of a control freak.
No, do you know what it is?
You're a bit of it's the fact that you're a bit. So what you'll do is you'll hand a job over to someone, but then you'll micromanage it
Yeah.
at the same time.
I'm guilty as charged. Thank you.
So a lot of landlords like that, though. And I think the key is just to leave them to it.
It's. Do you know what? In my previous businesses, you get let down so often by people that work for you. You get used to having to do everything yourself, because you sort of say to yourself, look, if you want the job done, you've got to do it properly yourself.
I hate that saying.
I know, so do I. But
You just said it.
no. The reality is,
Yeah.
when I used to employ people in my bus and coach business, it was easier sometimes. Although I'm paying people, it was easier for me just to do the frigging job myself because I know it get done properly and it gets.
Do you know
done
what's
first
even
time.
easier?
Sack them and find better staff.
Yeah.
100%. But maybe the mindset is kicking in, stopping me doing that. But after, like, obviously, with you and Samuel, I've learnt very much just to let people, like,
Thing is, here's the thing.
take control.
Right, here's the thing. And we're going a little bit off topic here,
That's
but
fine,
but you know, this is the Property Investors Podcast. That's what we do. But here's the thing: if let's say you could do it, you could manage it yourself.
Yeah.
But then you could only. It's not systemizable. You could only manage. Let Brett. He can manage 9. He can manage 9. But then it's a job for him. Now he might manage it better than a HMO manager, but he can't keep that. He can't get 100. So
No,
at
he
some
can't
point you're
grow.
gonna have to let it go.
And I would say it's better to let it go at this stage when it's small because then you can get the right people in place and they can know how you work
Yeah.
before it becomes big.
But also, I mean, I'm not knocking Brett at all. He's done
No,
brilliantly well.
really
But
well.
for example, if it does depend on your financial situation. But imagine if he spent the time looking for more properties rather than managing them. It's gonna because you waste your time on the menial things.
Case in point here, Better Source, we've just employed a new operations manager, and I've actually let go. I've taken a step back and I've let go and I've given Max reins and I've let him.
Yeah,
I love it.
I made you do it.
Thank you. I know you did.
Yeah.
did. But I love it because he's such an awesome guy. He's so trustworthy. I can just say, Max, do you know what? You sort it out, mate. I don't want to be involved.
Yeah.
And he just does stuff, and it's so much easier than me having to be sort of micromanaging.
It's
all
also
the time.
nicer for them
Yeah, of course it
because
is.
nobody wants to be given a job and then have someone micromanage them
Yeah.
above. Nobody
Yeah.
Nobody
So
works.
I
well in
am
that environment.
changing. So it's a
Good.
working process, but
Good.
it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
No. I think you're doing well. So
So let's compare single let's HMOs.
compare single let's HMOs. Okay, so we know what Samuel thinks.
Yeah.
I would say it makes sense to go the HMO model because you're going to make more money. Having said that, I know often when we do the crash course and we get people to go and find deals and stuff, you can get very good returns off single lets.
Well, in the last crash course, there was a lady. There was a group of 3. I can't remember her name. She did end up joining the academy because she was so impressed with this deal she found. It was giving her something like a 50% ROI. It was freaking phenomenal. It was absolutely a really good deal, and I'm like, I'll actually buy that. But
Quickly
I
went to the agent, stole it off her.
No, I think they've actually put an offer in. I think they've got
brilliant.
it secured. But they're really good.
50% ROI.
It was like maybe 48. It was really high. Really high.
I think I've worked this out right. I've got a 50%. I go unlikely.
Yeah, I always say
Unlikely
the
you've
same.
worked it out right.
And then you start looking at it and you're like, actually.
Actually, I think I'd already offered on that one.
Yeah.
5 minutes time.
Yeah. But what do you think? So, if you're say, as Simon says, 30k in the bank, or you're on a sort of a good salary, £30,000 a year. Not everyone can go straight into HMO because you can't get a mortgage for a first-time landlord for HMO, or it's a lot harder. I'm not saying you can't. It's a lot harder.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to start with a single let. But would you?
I think most people
say
start with a single let.
Yeah.
I started with a single let. Samuel started with a single let. Did you start with a single let?
No, I actually started with HMOs.
Okay.
But I didn't buy conventionally. I bought through lease I've controlled through sort of lease options. But we're in the process.
So you're just showing off now. So you started with a lease option HMO. That was your first property deal.
It is a little bit more creative, but
it was even more creative than that.
I've actually just taken on another 4-bed multi-let HMO, which I've not only secured yesterday, mate.
Nice.
That's in a good area, already up and running, tenanted.
Congratulations.
Lease option as well. So that's cool. But yeah, so from a new investor's point of view, if somebody's looking to get in, I always say to them, look, you're probably better off speaking to your mortgage broker and see what they say about getting a mortgage. But I think you're better off getting like a 50,000, 55,000, 60,000 pound property. You're going to need 15k to get into that. Start getting a bit of landlord experience, get a bit of experience with it, and then once you've done that for maybe 6 months to a year, speak to a mortgage broker and see if you can get into the HMO scene.
Yeah, I agree.
But I wouldn't have all your eggs in one basket.
So spread. That is actually a very good point.
I've
Maybe
never been
get
a
couple of single lets,
couple
couple of
HMOs,
couple of service accommodations,
or even better, a couple of single lets that would work as HMOs that you could convert to HMO when the time's right. And then if it doesn't work as HMO, go back to a single let. But maybe start it as a single let, and then look for single lets that are in areas where it would work as a HMO. Once you can get that mortgage changed to a HMO.
I suppose that's the thing. If you can buy something that's going to stack up, I always recommend this. If you're going to buy like a service accommodation or a HMO or whatever, it always should stack up as a single let as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously, if the rules change, or if it doesn't work, or if there opens a hotel next door to you that...
For instance, right, with HMOs, there's areas in the country that 2 or 3 years ago were phenomenal for HMOs. Now they're not. But what do the people do that have got HMOs there? They have to stack up as something else. So if their whole... When they're buying that property, if their whole sort of agenda was to make it as a HMO, and they got no backup plan, i.e. it wouldn't work as a single let, or it wouldn't get much money as a single let, to me that's a bit of a flawed plan in the first place.
Yeah.
So I know, like, when Better Source send out deals and we offer deals to investors, we always have plan A, plan B. So plan A would be whatever it's described as when we send it out, and then plan B would be something else that it still makes money.
Did you put that on the email?
We don't put it on the email, but when we speak to the investors, we discuss that.
I like that. It's a good idea. It's a good idea. Right, fantastic. It is now time for this.
It's property investing news time.
So this is an article all about commercial property, and I know commercial is something that you really want to get into.
Yeah, it is, because of my previous experience with trying to rent a commercial unit when I was in my bus and coach workshop. It was always very, very difficult to find suitable premises.
Awesome. Well, I'll sort of sum up the article very briefly, and then we'll look into the main 6 points on it. But basically, they're saying how is Brexit, and not just Brexit, but
freaking Brexit. That's all I keep bloody hearing about.
How is Brexit and other changes in the market changing the commercial property market? What's going on? What's happening? And there's 6 main points for you to keep in mind as for someone that wants to get into commercial that's maybe looking a little bit more long term. Okay. Which I think commercial should be.
Yeah, 100%.
I think you should look at commercial long term. Before we sort of go on to that, let's just touch on the differences between commercial property and residential, just in case anyone listening that doesn't know. I mean, most of what we teach, certainly at a lower level, I'd certainly recommend for people that are just getting into property. Residential is a lot easier.
Yes, the barrier to entry is very low. It's a lot lower anyway.
But commercial does have some advantages. One of them being that it's very, very passive. So, for example, if you buy an office or a shop and you lease it to a company, it will normally be a long-term lease, maybe with a break clause in or something. But you might be like 5-10 years, for example.
Yeah.
And then they will have to maintain the property, and if they break a window, it's their fault, not yours.
Yeah.
So you can literally just leave them to it. And they will take care of everything, as opposed to a residential where it's not only your responsibility, but you have probably more tenant problems, shall we say?
Yeah, you have the same tenant for a long period of time. Like for instance, when I used to rent a big commercial unit in Bedfordshire, and that was for my workshop business, and we had a 6-year lease. We had a break clause every 3 years, and we were responsible for the maintenance of that building.
So you had a 6-year lease and a break clause every 3 years.
Yeah, so I had one
So you
break
had
clause.
one break clause. Okay.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
So these are basically the points. So number one, repurposing retail space. So aware that high streets and shopping centres will never be the same again, more companies are starting to convert this idle space for new uses, particularly for housing. So an interesting point I noticed the other day, because I'm always on the eye for commercial property if I can get a good return on the investment because of how easy and passive it is. And there was 4 shops in Walsall town centre.
Okay.
Myself and Samuel were discussing them the other day, and they were making a rent of around about £80,000 a year.
Cool.
So you'd probably make a profit after all costs of somewhere between £50,000 and £60,000 a year. And you'd have to put in about 350 grand to buy it. So it's not a bad return on investment.
Yeah.
But what put me off was I think particularly high streets are dying.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're saying here.
Massively.
So,
and also they were in Walsall.
well, they are also in Walsall. But I like that because I know Walsall really well.
Oh, do you? Okay.
So it's funny because above the shops, they're all apartments.
Oh,
And
right.
Samuel actually owns 2 of the apartments above the shops.
Does he? That's
Coincidentally.
funny.
Yeah, but I was put off it because I don't know. Number one, online. Everyone's buying online nowadays. When you go, when I was younger, and I'm not even that old. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for someone like you. But
You're such a.
when I was younger, you'd go to town every Saturday.
Yeah,
You'd go to town.
In fairness, back in the 60s, I remember that as well.
You weren't born in the 60s.
No, of course I wasn't.
70s.
80s.
Really?
Yeah.
Serious?
100%. 82.
Wow.
But yeah, I remember that.
I mean,
like,
people listening probably will be like, "What?" But anyone watching on YouTube will be shocked by this new revelation.
But I remember when I was younger, like the weekends, you would go out to the town centre, do your bit of shopping. Now you just go on Amazon or you go on whatever, and you just buy.
Or you'd go. I never go to a town centre.
Never, same as buy everything online, everything.
What about clothes?
Even still, I buy online, or
Really?
literally,
I can tell actually.
or literally, me and my wife will go like probably shopping to like a big shopping complex once every 6 months, and we'll spend a chunk of money.
That's exactly what I do. I particularly like the designer outlets, or but yeah, shopping centres. So where you
so
drive.
hang about, just a little bit of a plug here.
Yeah.
If you are going to go to Bicester Village, we have a lovely cottage you can stay in. Just round the corner.
Very true. Yeah. Try out Bicester Village.
Yeah.
Brilliant centre. And if you are going to go down there, you want to spend at least 2 days there, so you will need somewhere to
stay. Yeah.
You'll need somewhere to
100%.
stay. Nice little cottage. If you not far. It's too much for a plug now. Too much for a plug.
No, but yeah, I'm with you. That's what we do. Every 6 months, maybe 8 months, me and Lisa literally go shopping and we'll spend.
Do you ever go to the town centre?
Never.
And then when you do, occasionally, you see like loads of shops empty.
Yeah.
So unless you want to buy one to turn it into something else. What is gonna happen to the high street though?
I think the high streets are dead. I think honestly,
what's gonna happen to them?
They're going to become. What are they going to become? What realistically? You've got like an old sort of Blockbusters or an old like Woolworths. I know you won't remember that, but you've got like Woolworths and all that sort of stuff. They're massive shops. What are you going to put in them apart from pound shops? So what I'm seeing more on the high streets now is gambling outlets, bookies, or charity shops.
What about offices? Might they turn into
Potentially, yeah. You could put
business centres,
like service departments, like but for service offices,
houses, or who knows? But that might be something interesting you could do. You could buy maybe a shop, especially if you get it cheaper now, and then
could
turn
you
it into something else.
I don't think it's going to be a very viable option to turn like a local high street shop into like a a flat, is it? It's not. Would you want to live there? Do you think that's a viable option to make it into like?
Well, there are flats above.
Yeah, but not on the ground floor. I think
Depends what you did to the front of it.
Yeah.
Certainly an office. I'd
Office,
certainly
yeah.
have to work there.
So office, and then above make it into residential, perhaps.
Maybe. So we'll see. Anyway, so that's number one. Be aware of that. I think that's a very, very, very valid point. Number two, retail shops to retail warehousing. So high street stores continue to shut down because more and more people are shopping online, kind of what we were just saying. This has led to stores being shut, but more warehouses being opened as online sellers expand their logistics and delivery networks.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy, warehousing is on the up right now.
I think so, yeah.
So that could be, and I think it's going to go more and more that way.
In Northamptonshire, where I'm from, there's a lot of warehousing getting built at the minute, and they're not sitting empty for very long. They're selling, like they have the big for sale banner go up down the side of it, and that they're not up for very long.
Yeah.
They do sell quite quickly. A lot of the big companies are buying, sort of snapping them up. All you got to do is look at Amazon. They're popping warehouses
And
up.
it doesn't even matter where they are, does it?
No.
They
Because
could
it's all
be-
online.
They could be anywhere. So
Um,
warehousing is an interesting one. Number three, devaluation of the pound is a boost for the industrial sectors. The fall in the pound has increased demand for British exports and led to a higher demand for industrial space.
Okay.
Didn't you hire industrial space?
Yeah, I did hire industrial space, yeah.
So I don't know much about industrial space. I'm going to be honest.
Well, yeah, we had industrial space. We used to have a 4,000 square foot unit.
That is a mouthful, isn't it? 4,000 square foot. I'm
It
surprised
is.
you got it out.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what we used to hire, which was cool. We
It's
had
big. It's not massive, is
It's
it?
not massive. It's big. It was big enough for what we needed.
Mm.
But the biggest problem I had, with units is finding the suitable one for your business, because when you're like a new business or a young business, you don't want to go massive because you're tying yourself into like a long lease. So you want to go somewhere that's a bit affordable, but also give you a little bit of room to grow. But it's a bit of a catch-22, because if you're a new business, you can probably only afford a small industrial unit. But really, you want to grow.
And if you want to be tied into a 5-year
you don't want to be tied
lease.
into a long lease. So
Yeah.
and then you don't want to just bite the bullet and go straight to a massive unit, because it's
Too expensive.
It's too expensive.
Could you bite the bullet, go to a massive unit, and sublet some of it?
Depending on the legalities of that, yeah.
Just tonight. I mean,
because
I'm
I
thinking out loud here.
I think that would be a viable option. Because obviously I don't. Yeah, I think that would be a viable option. It's commercial, so I wouldn't imagine there's any problem subletting.
Even if you just rented it as like, so rather than subletting,
Yeah.
say, storage space.
Storage, yeah.
You just
Well,
put-
we've just back to point 2 or whatever it was. Warehousing space.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm seeing so many like self-storage places pop up, like container yards full of containers, or industrial units that are just full of self-storage.
So
people.
maybe what would be a good move is buy as big or as expensive as you can
Yeah.
get, and then any space that you don't need,
divide it up.
divide it
Well,
up.
incidentally, I used to hire, after we moved out that big workshop, I still had lots of equipment, so we hired a self-storage unit, and it was about £300 a month, and all it was a massive, huge factory, and they were all built into individual cells, and you had a padlock and a key for this individual cell.
Or just breeze blocks sort of thing.
No, not even breeze blocks, aluminium panels. It was like a prefab aluminium panels. If they wanted to make a bigger unit, they just popped one aluminium panel
That's
down.
great.
It's so easy, so quick, but it was completely passive income. And do you know what? They had like a 90% occupancy. They're really high
Wow.
occupancy rate.
Wow. So there you go. There's lots of ideas. Now this one is right up my street because I feel like I know a lot about this. Number 4, shared office and shorter leases. Now, anyone that's starting a new business, it kind of in the boat you were just talking about with the industrial, but I'm talking about a normal business now, which is more sort of office based. You're in the exact same situation, whereas companies like Regis, which I know you mentioned, and there's others as well. You can just literally hire an office, flexible. They have the Wi-Fi in there for you. They have you have to buy the desks, very low outlay, and it's a little bit like serviced accommodation, but for an office.
Yeah. And the good thing with them,
Or maybe more like a HMO.
the good thing with these places is you can hire them for like an hour. So if you've just got like short meetings, and you can go there and you've got a fully equipped office.
Well, the ones I've used these sort of companies.
Okay.
It wasn't quite as flexible as that where we went. I'm sure I don't know about Regis and the likes, but it was basically you're in a contract for like 6 months, 12 months.
Yeah.
You just hire the room, and then when you grow, you just move into a bigger room in the building or hire an extra room. So it's kind of perfect for a growing business. Until you get to the size where you think, right, I want to buy now.
I think it's quite interesting. Just in Milton Keynes, just off Junction 14, right?
Yeah.
There's a massive building, and on the side of it, I don't know what company it is, but it says desk hire from short term from as little as an hour. So you can rent a desk for an hour at a time, like with full Wi-Fi. So if you're literally just in the area for meetings, but obviously they have fuller, longer contracts. And
normally
like
what they have as well is you've got your office, and then there's a couple of meeting rooms in the building.
Yeah.
You can hire them on top, which are a bit more expensive. But I can see, as you get more entrepreneurs, as you get more people wanting offices, I can see these going more and more
I think
popular
so.
and more available. There's already, I mean, even in Cannock, which is where we were based, there was which is Cannock.
Okay. I don't know where that is.
You don't know where Cannock is?
I've heard of it.
It's very near where we are now.
Oh, is it? Okay, so
About 10 minutes away.
that's cool. I didn't know that.
But when we were based in Cannock, quite a small town, and I think there was 3 of these in Cannock.
Cool.
Can't think what they were all called, but so shared office. Number 5, alternative commercial property attracting attention. So the fundamentals for alternative commercial property, such as student housing and self-storage, remain strong and offer the most potential growth.
Self-storage. Just said that.
We did. So
I didn't read this
no,
because I can't really see it, to be honest.
his eyes still aren't right.
Yeah.
Which is great because I can
Bit blurry.
Yeah. So that's cool. And then number 6, can you read that word?
Oh, my favourite word. That dreaded Brexit.
Brexit and higher interest rates pose the biggest threat. So although the structural changes impacting the retail sector will continue, the 2 most immediate threats to the UK commercial property sector are the uncertainty spawning from Brexit and the likelihood of higher interest rates being introduced over the coming years. So they're just sort of 2 things to bear in mind. But looking at that, if you were going to buy commercial property now, what would you do? Where would you go?
I've always had an interest in commercial property. So I think, what would be the safest bet for you? What do you think would be the safest bet?
See, for me, I'm very uninterested. I know I like to be a bit passionate about the subject, and things like industrial, it doesn't interest me at all.
So like,
that'd be like owning a car park.
Okay, it doesn't interest you, but it will make quite good money.
Yeah,
like
for instance, but I'd be leaning towards the shared offices and shorter leases.
Yeah,
because that's what I feel like I know.
You can make
about.
more money with short lease, I suppose, because anything short term and lease attracts higher income.
But
however,
it's not passive, is it? Unless you'd have, because they always have staff. At the venue that makes sure everything ticks over.
Well, like, the thing like this, like my old unit that I used to rent, I know the landlord only paid like £120,000 for that property. My rent was like £3,500 a month. So if you think about that, like if you compare,
so you're spending it's $40,000 a year. For
for £120,000 property,
mm.
we had to do the full repairing on it. So he didn't do anything. The only thing he was responsible for was the actual structure of the building.
Why didn't you buy?
Because we weren't in a position to buy. We weren't. We didn't know what we knew now. So back then we were paying £3.5k per month. We had small rate relief, which was cool. But the property was 120k. Now, how many people would buy a HMO at 120k and not see £3.5 grand a month?
Oh, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't, would you?
Nah.
And you wouldn't have the less hassle. Like I had a lease, we paid our rent every month on time, we didn't have any problems. So for the landlord, he's got several of these properties. He's got lots. So I
do like industrial after all. Maybe I've changed my mind.
Yeah, I thought you might.
I think when I went to view it, I'd just be like, just aware.
It's just a warehouse, it's just an empty building.
Well, I suppose I've got to remember it's formulas, not feelings, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think you've got to have a degree of being passionate about anything that you do.
Well, yeah, obviously you've got to have interest in what you do because you've got to keep yourself motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to do I'd love to do hotels.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you not see that as a lot of hassle?
Well, I'm not going to be the one cleaning.
No,
it.
I know you're not. You don't. We've learned earlier that you don't do a lot around the house, so I know you won't be the one.
I could do the ironing for people. I could walk their dogs.
Yeah. So if they bring a dog, you can take it for a walk. No, I know. I always see hotels as a bit of a high risk. But then when you
Loved
think
it.
about it, I obviously I travel around the country quite often looking at properties, so I always end up staying in hotels, and like the big chains, like Premier Inn, they're always pretty full. To be honest, they're always pretty full.
It's hard to get a room last minute, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a good point actually.
Yeah.
But you're talking like massive setup costs. But obviously the higher the setup cost, less competition. So.
Yeah. The other thing that I'd like to do though with hotels is the conference side.
Yeah.
I mean, we're actually at the Hilton Hotel right now.
Yeah.
You know, in a room that like the one we've, it's like £10,000 a day
Wow.
to hire, and they've got what, 7 rooms here.
They've got loads, haven't they? And even they've got all these little, even the small rooms. Like we're in a small room at the minute. This is
Yeah.
probably a couple £100 a day. You know?
Yeah.
I know it's only a small room, but still money coming in, isn't it?
And then you've got all the bedrooms.
Potentially, could you not do this with the Ribbersford House, the castle, or is it not suitable?
It's not suitable, no. It's I don't see. There are other things you've got to take into consideration, like for example, parking.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be able to get masses of parking there.
Okay.
Also, for the big conference, I mean, you could do it for smaller rooms,
Yeah,
like this
yeah.
sort of room. Yes, I mean, I think the biggest room in the house is 45 square meters.
Okay, so that is fairly large, but it's
It is
not
fairly
massive. It's you probably get 50, 60 people in there.
Yeah, you get 50, 60.
But would you be able to park 50, 60 cars?
No.
No. Okay.
There is a church very nearby with a car park, but you can't take the mick, can you? You continue using the church car park as that's your plan. You might get away with it once if you have a party or something, but you couldn't do it all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't think so. I think that's going to have to stick residential.
So to sum up, what's your pros and cons of commercial? One each.
All right. So pros are very passive.
Yeah.
Although ironically, the stuff I'm interested in is less so, i.e., hotels.
Yeah.
Oh, it's always passive if you hire
If you
staff.
systemize it,
But like what you were talking about with the garages and stuff, you don't need staff.
you don't need
You
anything.
just or storage.
That is really what I like about commercial.
Yeah. So
And
maybe
also,
maybe I'm an idiot.
no, I wouldn't say that. Nick might, but I wouldn't. Also, with commercial, I think one massive pro is you get longer leases. You get
Yeah.
much longer leases, and
Kind
they're,
of
they're
ties
a
in
lot
with
more
the passive,
secure.
But yeah, a lot more secure and passive.
Yeah.
Cons?
Cons. No.
You need to put down 40% rather
Okay,
than
yeah.
25. So
higher
you need more money.
barrier to entry.
You need more money.
So cons. What else? What have I got to think of a con?
I also think, isn't it a bit harder to get? It's a bit harder to get into, isn't it? Which I suppose comes back to high barrier.
I think
to entry again.
higher barrier to entry. I
Need
do
more
think
money.
that more money. I can't really think of many cons.
No.
I think the biggest thing with industrial or commercial is it got to be in the right location. If you pick the wrong location, you could have a big void period. I think
Here's a con.
for certain types.
Here's a con. If, for example, so if you bought, like, people are always going to live in houses.
Of course they are.
Like, always.
Yeah.
So, but we were just looking there at, like, for example, like high street shops.
Yeah.
They're going to be dropping in value.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you've probably got the same guaranteed capital appreciation that you have with. I don't think it's as safe as housing. So, for example, you were talking about industrial. What about if something happens and you don't really cars don't break anymore?
Yeah.
And you don't really have garages anymore, or
Yeah, a big con I can see actually is if you've got like this massive industrial unit or commercial unit which is bringing in big bucks, your risks are a lot higher. Do you not think? So you've got a tenant that owes you a lot more money, and if that tenant goes bust, because obviously some businesses
less spread out.
it's less spread out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all your eggs are literally in that one basket. So if you've got somebody paying like say £10,000-15,000 a month in rent, and they suddenly go bankrupt,
Yeah.
you could risk losing a hell
I
of a lot of
think
money.
with commercial, it would be helpful if you understood the sector you were going into.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Whereas with housing, everyone understands the housing
Yeah.
sector because we all live in houses.
Yeah.
So maybe for someone that's got no commercial experience, no business experience, or not a lot of money, residential will be a lot better. But interesting though. Interesting.
Yeah, I must admit, commercial really does interest me.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, guys, thanks very much for listening to the podcast this week. Don't forget to subscribe, and share it with your friends. We really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. We're here next week, next Friday at 4:00. So we'll see you then. For now, take care. Bye-bye.
See you again next week, guys.